Have you ever heard about the ParamArray keyword in VBA? If not, I'll tell you about it. Hi, I'm Philip from codekabinett.com, and this is a very short video, just real quick, about an, rather unknown keyword in VBA, and if you don't know it, you absolutely should, because it is very useful in rather rare circumstances, but if you need it, you can't do without, and so you should know about it, just in case. The whole topic came up because someone asked about reproducing the Coalesce function from SQL-Server or Oracle in an Access query. And I'll show you how Coalesce works. This is basically a query using Coalesce. This is the function call, and you pass in a number of columns, and the important thing is it is a variable number of columns. So it would also be valid to just pass in 2 columns. Then it works exactly as the nz function in Access. It will return the first value, but if that is null, then it will return the second value. And Coalesce works exactly the same way, except that it can work with any number of columns. So like it is here, that would be easy to replicate with Coalesce. But if I add the 3rd column back here, then I would have to need some sort of nested Coalesce, like nested nz, of course. I've got this query here. That would be the same with nz. And it does work, but if I would add a 4th column here, then I would put the another call to nz in here to the 4th column, and so on. And if a 5th column needs to be added, then we once again need to add a nested call. So you have lots and lots of nested function calls to nz, and that looks a little bit horrible and is not very easy to maintain. But with the Coalesce function shown here, I would just add the 4th column right into the function call here, and it is much more readable and easier to write, and I actually like it. So, what do we do now? This function is nice, but it's not available in VBA. Can we replicate it? Yes, of course we can. Otherwise I wouldn't make this video. But you need to know something special. And the important part is the ParamArray keyword here. And that will make the next argument become an array of variants. There's nothing special with that, but the important part is that it allows any number of arguments be passed into that function, and they will end up in that array here. And it always will be an variant type of array. You cannot narrow down the type to be more specific. And the restriction is the ParamArray argument always needs to be the last argument in the argument list to any function. You cannot add anything here. That does not work. If you need other parameters to your function, you will need to add them in front of that ParamArray. That does work, but the ParamArray is always the last argument in the argument list. So just real quick, the function itself is rather simple. we just define a return value here, and then for the lower bound of the arguments array to the upper bound of the arguments array, we just increment that internal counter I and just loop through that array and check if it's null. Then we just assign the return value and exit the loop and then finally return the value. That is really simple, but you only can do that with that ParamArray keyword to design or to define that arguments to be a variant of arguments passed into that function. And now let's look at a little bit of test code I wrote. Here I call this function with 3 arguments, 1, 2, 3. Now it's 4 arguments, but the first one is null. Now 2 are null, and I added another one here. So I can add any number of arguments, and the function will always return the first non-null value. So let's just call that, and you see 1, that was the first non-null. Now the second one is 2 because that one was null, and then it's both ABC because that is the first non-null value. And quick switch back to our SQL query. I need to delete the 4th column here because I haven't defined that. And quickly let's look at this table I prepared for the sample. So you see here is one column with a couple of null values. Here's another column with a couple of null values, and this column is always filled with a value. And now we just run this query, and you see it always returns the first non-null value. So we have successfully replicated the Coalesce function in VBA. And that has just been possible because of that ParamArray keyword. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to write a similar function with that simple code at all. Okay, I hope you learned a little bit useful today. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.